Welcome to Navigating the Estate Plan with Caress Law. I am Tammi Caress, founder of Caress Law. We are a boutique estate planning firm servicing folks in Oregon and Washington. And today's podcast, I am talking about important documents every person, including a young adult, should have. So I'm really focusing on the young adults here today. And when I say young adults, usually it is a person who has lived at home and they are about to leave the nest, whether they're going to college or otherwise. They are no longer going to be living in the home with their parents or whomever is their guardian or caregiver when they were minors. And now it's time for the disclaimer. The information contained in this podcast and associated material is intended to furnish listeners and users with general information on matters that they may find to be of interest. The information in this podcast provided by Caress Law and its agents are for general guidance and is not intended to replace or serve as a substitute for any advisory, tax, estate planning, or other professional or legal advice, consultation, or service. Sometimes we may reference third-party materials or websites. Such links or references are only for the convenience of the listener, user, or browser. Caress Law and its agents do not recommend or endorse the content of third-party information or sites. You should consult with appropriate Caress Law professionals or other professional advisors for advice concerning specific tax, estate planning, or other matters before making any decision. In summary, this podcast is not legal advice. If you need legal advice or before acting or making any decision with anything talked about in the podcast, seek the counsel of an attorney. Thanks so much. When I say young adults, usually it is a person who has lived at home and they are about to leave the nest, whether they're going to college or otherwise. They are no longer going to be living in the home with their parents or whomever is their guardian or caregiver when they were minors. So many people think, well, they're too young. They don't own anything. Why do they need estate planning documents? That's because it's not just about planning for your death. There are very important documents that every person, including a young adult, should at the bare minimum have in place. And those are the documents that are effective when you sign them and are relevant during your lifetime. So it's not just about planning for your death. The first document I'm going to talk about is the advance directive. The advance directive is specific to Oregon. There could be other states that have similar documents as Oregon, but here I'm going to talk about Oregon's advance directive. In Oregon, the advance directive names an individual who would direct medical care for the principal if that person cannot direct medical care for themselves. So you're appointing a healthcare representative to make medical decisions if a person cannot make them for themselves under the advance directive. Why it's important for a young adult to have this document is I have faced this situation, unfortunately, with my clients in the past. A child has been in college. They were involved in an accident and they, doctors, nurses, medical professionals need to talk to someone. And if there is an if there is not a person appointed, many times you have to jump through quite a few hoops before the hospital or medical professionals will be able to release any sort of protected health information. So the advance directive names a healthcare representative so that healthcare representative can talk to those medical professionals and also make healthcare decisions for that young adult if that young adult cannot make that for themselves. Usually it's because they're involved in some sort of accident and they don't have the capacity to make decisions. The advance directive has come in very handy for many of my clients, more than I wish it were true, but it's just a reality. So if you have a loved one who is about to leave the home that they grew up in and go off to school or start their own lives, it is a good idea to have them put this document in place. Now, the advance directive in Oregon serves another purpose. And one is to specify your medical wishes or your medical instructions when you don't have capacity to specify those instructions for yourself. You're really leaving a guideline to your healthcare representative to let them know what you want or don't want in terms of medical care. And it's even inclusive of end-of-life decisions, life support, tube feeding, and whether those measures are something that a person would want or not. So a young adult should have this in place. Absolutely, they should have this in place. If they're 18 years of age, they should have it in place. The next document I'm going to talk about is very similar to the advance directive. It's the healthcare power of attorney. And some jurisdictions don't have an advance directive where they name a healthcare representative plus allow you to stipulate your medical instructions in one document. Instead, they separate it and they say, here's your healthcare power of attorney. And what it is you're naming that person to direct your medical care when you can't. And it's just one document, and that's what it does. For the same reasons as the advance directive, this is a very important document for an 18-year-old or other, older young adult to have. And that is, simply because you no longer have, as a parent, caregiver, guardian, you no longer have access to that child's protected health information unless you have some of these documents in place and you want to be able to get access to that information if that child's in trouble. So super, super important documents. The other documentation that I think is important is a power of attorney. And this is a power of attorney over legal and financial affairs. So every young adult should also have a power of attorney. There are lots of different types of powers of attorney. One can be effective only upon incapacity. Another can be effective as soon as that young adult signs it, and we are giving someone else the ability to act in a fiduciary capacity for that young adult with regard to legal and financial matters. And let's just be real. How many people out there are talking to that young adult's landlord on behalf of that young adult, or signing a lease, or reviewing a lease, or obtaining housing for that young adult? And it's not the young adult typically doing it on their own. So the power of attorney can become super helpful in those types of situations. Also, again, the young adult gets in trouble, meaning they're in an accident, some sort of incident. They cannot act with regard to their legal matters or their financial matters on their own because they're lacking capacity. That power of attorney will allow their agent that they've nominated, usually it's a parent or their guardian or caregiver, to go ahead and step in and take care of those issues for them. So it's a really important document. Another one is just a general HIPAA release. So HIPAA basically prevents medical professionals from disclosing protected health information from others. So when a person turns 18 years of age, HIPAA laws are relevant to them, and a parent or guardian cannot access their protected health information without their consent. And so a general HIPAA release will give a parent guardian consent to be able to access protected health information, which again, many times parents or guardians are paying for that child's insurance, health care, etc. And if the parent gets a bill, they cannot call the company to say, what's this bill for? I don't understand these charges. The company, the medical institution, I'm going to say, cannot disclose what the reasons behind those charges without something on file that allows the parent or guardian to have access to protected health information. So just from a financial standpoint, it's very important to have something like that in place. Lastly, I'm going to talk about a will. Now, arguably, an 18-year-old may not need a will. A young adult may not need a will. But if they have assets in their own name, a will is important. Tragic accidents occur, unfortunately, and I have helped parents have to navigate the probate process with a child's affairs, and they don't have a clue about the assets they own, bank accounts they have, cryptocurrency they might have. A lot of time these child's accounts are just strictly online. There's no brick and mortar institution. A will at least gives a person the power to ask questions and get information needed from financial institutions to figure out what a child has and owns. Without a will, it can be difficult to figure out whether a probate is needed, and what needs to happen. And we need access to information in order for the parent or guardian to figure out what venue or process we need to go through in order to settle that deceased young adult's estate. Now, hopefully, most people are not in that scenario, but it is very real for many people out there. So there you have it. Oh, you know what? I just remembered one last thing I want to talk about is digital assets. We are living in a digital age, and if you have a young adult loved one, it's guaranteed that they are probably more tech savvy than you are. And digital assets are very important and are very real. When you prepare or you have your young adult prepare a power of attorney, we are specifically, at least at Caress Law, we are specifically giving the agent power to deal with and manage digital assets. And many assets are now in the cloud. Cryptocurrency, anyone? They're in a format that is not paper. So you need that power of attorney to be able to manage that asset, sell that asset, whatever it may be. But if it's a digital account, a power of attorney will give the agent the ability to oversee, gain access to, and manage those accounts when necessary. This is true for online banking accounts. It's true for social media accounts. So these documents will give person authority over digital assets. I shouldn't say authority, and it's really when they step into act because that young adult can't do it for themselves for whatever reason. Without a provision in documents, digital assets are typically off the table, meaning Gmail is not going to allow you access to that young adult's Gmail account, where, by the way, they receive emailed invoices for all their bills, is through their email account. Gmail or Google is not going to give you access unless you have authority to have access under that power of attorney. So another important reason to have that young adult put a power of attorney in place. Okay, I hope this was helpful for you. I want to go ahead and direct you to my website. I do have a blog specifically on this topic. I think it's a topic that is often overlooked or not thought about, but it is very important. So if you go ahead and go to my website, it's caresslaw.estate. That's www.caresslaw.estate. You can actually search for my blog, and it's called Advanced Directives, Power of Attorney, and Other Estate Planning Documents Your College Student Needs. And I will go ahead and put a link to that in the show notes below. Thank you so much for listening today. I look forward to doing this again with you soon.